Welcome to another episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Our hosts, Sri Rajgopalan, Peter V.S. Bond, and Brian Gildenberg, explore how brands and retailers engage consumers in an increasingly digitally driven world. And now, here are the CPG Guys.
Hello, and welcome to the CPG Guys podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brian Gildenberg, the founder and CEO of Confluencer Commerce, the managing director of North America at Retail Cities, and the host of the Gildenberg Omni Comment and the Fast Forward podcast on this platform. And today, of course, I am joined by another one of the CPG Guys, the guru of Guilford, the head of industry partnerships for Flywheel, and I think at this point, safe to say a podcasting icon, Peter Bond. Peter, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Brian. Good to be with you today. I'm coming to you from Parts Undisclosed, the parking lot of a TJ Maxx in majestic East Haven, Connecticut. But exactly. But in any event, I'm doing great.
No free ads. No free ads.
I know. No free ads. I will tell you this. I'm doing well. I am looking forward to catching up. I think we've actually going to have the whole crew in the south of France next month. From what I tell, all of us, our Fresh 4 colleagues and the CPG guys, it's going to be like a little reunion. Ooh la la, as my daughter would quote from Fancy Nancy. But looking forward, everything's going great. Summer is getting ready to kick off. Can't wait for the mid-season classic in baseball. I mean, the Dodgers have spent enough money building out their entire team. Now the Red Sox, they've been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, haven't they? What's going on?
They have not. The Red Sox are on a solid quest to go 81-81. We're going to achieve full scale. We're going for low variance mediocrity this year. Last year was high variance mediocrity. So we're narrowing the range of we're like a good digital marketing algorithm. We're really narrowing in on the 81-81 bid term. We've got it optimized. So we're crushing it. All right. Well, before we get to our guests, I'll remind everybody to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. And if you use Apple or Spotify, please give us a rating. It really helps if you give us a rating that rhymes with jive bars. So just planting that in your head subliminally. It feeds the algorithm, makes our podcast more findable for people that are interested in this content. We also, of course, want to express how honored we are to be the number one rated CPG podcast for 2 years running, according to FeedSpot, the leading podcast ranking authority. And we are very pleased to have joining us in the top 30 on that ranking, our sister podcast, the CPG Scoop, CPG Guys Fast Forward, and the FMCG Guys over in Europe. So please subscribe to all of those as well. We're also happy to be formal sponsors of Next Up, whose mission it is to advance all women in business and promote the cause of gender equality in the workplace. To learn more about Next Up, simply click on the hyperlink in the digital liner notes of this episode, where you'll also find links to our podcast site and the sites of our sister casts. You'll also be able to follow Shree's daughters, Rhea and Laura, on their career journeys as musicians. So now let's get to today's very special guest for our conversations. In addition to Peter, we have a special dual episode. So we have two businesses that have been on the podcast a number of times, but have never done it before together. So it's like a super group. Yeah, it's a mashup, as the kids say. So one guest, I believe you're making your third appearance on the podcast, Evan. You're closing in on more swag. So Evan Hovorka, the VP of Product and Innovation at the Albertsons Media Collective, and this time joined by first-time podcast guest LiveRamp's Lori Johnshoy, the global head of CPG, Retail Media Network, and Retail Strategy. Lori, Evan, how are you two?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Evan, how about yourself?
Doing well. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having us back. I guess we didn't disappoint too poorly on the last episode, but excited to be here today with Lori, longtime friend and coworker. So I think today's going to be a fun one.
We would probably call it a collab, right?
Yeah. Collaboration. Lori's pretty hip with the lingo, so we're shortening that to collab. But yeah, we've been collabing for maybe 18 years. We'll get into that. Yeah. It's been fun.
Yeah, you guys are on fleek. My daughter loves it when I use 7-year-old internet terms. It's one of her favorite things. So that's cool. Well, why don't I mean, fortunately, you all have met before we logged into this podcast this morning. So just give us a feel for how you two have worked together over the years before we dive into the dive, and then you can also use that to kind of give us an illustration of who you are. I mean, as I always say, this is the superhero origin story part of the podcast. Like, you got bitten by a radioactive spider at some point, and now you are superheroes in the retail media world. So talk a little bit about that.
Sure, absolutely. So, like you said, I'm Lori Johnshoy, and right now I'm at LiveRamp, which we are a global technology company that collaborates data responsibly. And so it's amazing to be here today. Thank you again. But I spent 20 plus years at Target. And many of those years with Evan. And so, all my roles at Target over the years have been media, marketing, working with data, but really the focus has been how to use data to drive unbelievable customer experiences. Probably the last 10 years I was at Target. We started with maybe 4 of us. And they asked us to start and evolve a media network. And I did that over the past 10 years and many of those years with Evan. And we had, I think I was maybe one of the first people you ever met at Target when you came.
Yeah, it gets better than that. Yeah, I think you were the second person I talked to. I joined Target, probably second job out of college, currently at the Albertsons Media Collective, leading product and innovation for our retail media network. And I've been here for 3 years trying to build, I think, you said responsible, data responsible. We would say privacy compliant, privacy safe solutions for our CPG partners and non-endemic partners. And a big part of how we deliver that is through the technology and partnerships of LiveRamp. So very fortunate and very thankful for that support. But the story gets a little funnier than that, Lori. I think that it ties into how you help us through LiveRamp's partnership too. That concept of storytelling was what was so entertaining. My first couple meetings with you, you were leading sweepstakes at the time. And back in the day, Target had this crazy investment in sweeps, like safaris to Africa. I think you could win a Maserati through certain, do this, do that, do this, get entered, win a Maserati. And then the people and the shenanigans around price and prize delivery was so hilarious. Lori just kept the entire meeting rolling on the floor with all the shenanigans that took place to get things delivered. But what's interesting about that storytelling piece is there's always technology and data and challenges behind anything we build, but how you tell the story and how you make people feel like excited, entertained. I was always excited to come and listen to that program and listen to that team give their updates because it was just such a well-built data solution, but with a really fun storytelling side to it. And I think that story continues with LiveRamp and the Albertsons Media Collective. We have great data, but we have to tell great stories to get people excited about it.
Absolutely. Evan remembers, all the great things, funny stories with sweepstakes, but I did a lot less glamorous things, but that had a lot more impact of driving acquisition for Target, right? And it was kind of before at the beginning of our journey with identity and working with Axiom and doing all those things. And so I'm very fortunate to be able to work with a lot of different media networks. My role at LiveRamp, it kind of sits squarely in between commercial, marketing, and product. And really it's focused about helping partners like Albertsons figure out how to use collaboration, how to use data, kind of demystify, the complexities of it and drive value right away from the partnerships. And I think both Evan and I, when we worked at Target, LiveRamp was one of the key partners that really drove that value and kind of helped us drive that huge arrow upwards as far as revenue. And so it's been an exciting journey, and I got to watch Evan, all 4 of his kids grow up. So yes, we've known each other a long time. It's been great.
Excellent. Well, why don't we, let's dive in. Let's use that as a launching point to dive into today's conversation about collaboration and partnership. But what I want to just kind of pivot a little bit here and start kind of with the business problem on the retailer side, Evan. I was just at an NACDS annual a couple of weeks ago with a bunch of different retailers, and you guys were one of them. And the thirst for growth in the marketplace has never been more pronounced, and not just advertising growth or ad revenue growth, but actual sales growth as well. As all of the retailers there were looking for trying to recover a pathway, particularly to unit growth as the marketplace unfolds. How's the business environment on the media side, both in terms of advertising, but also commercially? And is that shifting how you think about what you do and making the type of collaboration that you do with LiveRamp more important?
It's interesting you hit on unit sales, unit growth. When I think of the long history of advertising and the reason that it has such a large investment from CPGs and brands, it's because it is a powerful way to connect your story to the consumer. And traditionally, in the old days, done through paper, print, linear TV. And then as those channels evolved into something more digital and trackable and targetable, data became the name of the game, which led us to today's, reality where the data that those CPGs and brands are looking for is best found at the retailer who sells their products, especially for those who have a loyalty program and are tracking with consent all of those behaviors and sales and category shifts, brand shifts, even demographic shifts by location. That's all living inside of a retailer's ecosystem through point of sale, the loyalty program, and then their sites, apps, and stores. The units, though, are the main goal of that advertising dollar. And it's funny to see for how long those things were disconnected from each other. There's always been proxies and market level lift or digital sales that then we assume drive store sales. But for a lot of our CPGs, 90% plus of sales are happening in that brick and mortar. So offline, we're pushing for digital, but the consumer ultimately decides. And right now the decision is predominantly in-store shopping. And so difficult for a digital advertising or a linear TV to get to that level of data. But through the benefit of identity graphs and ID syncing through LiveRamp, we can make those connections and tie all of our off-platform ads, on-platform ads to that unit sales. So moving that brand closer to the point of truth, the reason for being, which is, am I moving more units this week than last week? Am I convincing Peter to buy more of that product or less? And why is that? And how do we attract that behavior that we're looking for? Then things can start to expand by price, discounts, coupons, advertising. But staying core to the reason for being, that unit sale, is, I think, a great way for retail media to show up better for CPGs. So we talk a lot with our merchants and with our big CPGs. We roll them into what we call the JBP, a joint business plan, where it brings the merchant and original CPG partnership to the forefront of the relationship. Media plays an important role then, but it's still centered around the core of our relationship, which is unit growth, unit sales. But we can talk about the entire relationship now with those two conversations coming together. That's been a focus for a year plus at the collective. It is a difficult thing to scale through technology. It's not like a self-serve platform. You really have to have humans in the room, C-level executives sometimes on both sides, really figuring out what that national commitment and shelf space and cap commitments are going to look like. But it's all in service of unit sales. So I love that evolution.
All right. Every time Evan refers to his organization as the collective, as a Star Trek fan, I get a completely different reference. Anyone who knows Star Trek knows what I'm talking about. But in any event, Lori, so good to have you here today with us. So I don't think there's anyone in this world who is shocked by the fact that once again, our friends at Alphabet, aka Google, have pushed off the cookie deprecation deadline to another undisclosed date in the future. So where are we right? And by the way, I should mention, I completely immersed myself in everything around this during the wonderful time I had at LiveRamp's Ramped Up event in San Francisco back in February. So thank you for having me there. I so thoroughly enjoyed it. I'd like your opinion. Where do we stand right now in terms of personalization, identity resolution from a third-party standpoint? What's going on, and what should we expect this year? Because clearly the end of third-party cookies in Google are not happening right away.
It's interesting. I'm going to kind of touch on what Evan was talking about and bring it back to cookies. It's interesting because when you think about, when you said the words unit, right? I think of so many of my conversations that I've had with CPGs and other types of brands. And the reality is it's pretty imperative, the connection between how a retailer is performing just as a whole compared to others, because a lot of times ad dollars move to the retailer that's moving more ad units, which makes it so important that a media network, if you're not that top retailer at the time, consumers switch behaviors, that you're able to talk to advertisers why it's still critical to partner with you to drive advertising, right? And part of that is the secret sauce of identification and understanding who it is. So yes, nobody was shocked, right, that we're pushing cookies out again. But the reality is it is kind of the final step, right? Most of the web is already cookieless. And cookies were never really the path to engage, right, for platforms like CTV for mobile. And we're telling clients, don't take your foot off the gas, right? Cookies are going to go away. And cookieless solutions, we know, are performing significantly better, right? So like great examples of things like that LiveRamp is doing is Pair. And so LiveRamp is a premier partner of Pair, which is, right, the solution is LiveRamp's clean room and identity tech to safely connect advertisers and authenticate consumer data, right? Pair, right, that is driven by Google, it really helps the ecosystem scale without using third-party cookies. So I think, again, yes, it's been pushed back, but really, we've come so far. And I think a lot of us know, like, to continue on the journey. And I think advertisers, publishers, agencies that don't, I think they're going to see some challenges. And we're seeing examples like we had Omni Hotel with Pair. They had a 4 times increase in performance by using Pair. And NBCU has now become the first major CTV platform to go live with Pair in our partnership with LiveRamp. So I think Albertsons is one of our partners too. And I think that to continue, again, who knows? It could be delayed again. They say it won't be, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, if I could add to that, no need to hold our breath, right? I mean, for those data have companies, cookie was kind of a plan C alternative. Maybe you could use it for new acquisition of customers that maybe had a weak signal inside the company, but really not the core of the relationship on or off platform. And primarily because retailers do such a good job getting things authenticated, and consumers see the value in those loyalty programs. And so a lot of that behavior in the 360 relationship is authenticated. And Pair, Google, the king of acronyms, the Publisher Advertiser Identity Reconciliation Program. No problem. I had to look that up, Lori. I thought I had it memorized, but
the funny thing is, Google has another AI initiative called Pair too. That's the other fun part. So not only is it a confusing a Google acronym, but they have 2 Pair acronyms as well. So
perfect. Oh, PAR, yeah. I mean, Apple. We got Apple on the other side. We could have a little fruit salad instead of this word salad.
Our friends at Pair Commerce, I thought were getting a nice shout out.
But that for as much as we can poke at Google for continuing to push that cookie out there, it's dying on its own, right? And especially in the case of CTV, that to Lori's point, so we were the first to launch Pair through LiveRamp with NBC inventory. We announced that at the New Fronts 2 weeks ago. And we launched it with a little bit of trepidation because this is a new muscle for Google, right? So great that they're slowing down the Pair rollout or the Google cookie deprecation, but it's coming. But kudos to them for creating an ID system that's actually shareable in the larger ecosystem. I was a little surprised to see how well it's getting adopted. And that wouldn't happen without companies like LiveRamp playing the safe middle role and connecting all those tech. But NBC, there's going to be other streaming services. Disney's announced. I'm sure others will follow. but pretty amazing to think of Google playing a distributed kind of open source is the wrong word, but a shareable ID system across, what they would traditionally consider a competitor, right? And so that's great. And then the fact that they have a similar concept to LiveRamp's authenticated traffic service, where they're getting publisher consented data to enrich that graph. Every time they bring on a new partnership, that graph gets better. That's where our trepidation came in the beginning, is how well will pair work? What's our find rate? What's our match rate? Because anytime there's a reduction in that, our costs go up because we're targeting smaller and smaller audiences. But our initial launch with NBC went fantastically well. We hit our fill rates, no problem. And we're going to continue to push for pair-enabled CTV marketing moving forward. So that is our core value prop now on CTV, which never used cookies anyway. So there was no signal loss, no fidelity loss. Open web, a little bit of cookie loss for some, but again, the folks with the data and partnering with data enablement companies and clean room companies like LiveRamp and their Habu partnership, that cookie loss is going to be a very small piece of any consideration. And then you go to social and a lot of the other platforms that have authentication, they're not using cookies either because you're logged in on Meta, you're logged in on Pinterest and TikTok. So tough for those third parties who maybe were grifting off of cookies to create data sets and sell them. Maybe the consent was not always clear to the consumer, and certainly the fidelity of that data, especially when it's tied to the point of sale, it was always in question. Those are going to shrink, and those companies have suffered. But that's fine. It's going to help us. It'll help consumers because the data that will be in market will be consented and treated safely through privacy conscious solutions like Habu. And for those that were selling less than systems, that's great for the brands to not use those as much anyway, because they're not going to be as performant as a true high fidelity closed loop ecosystem like NBC, Pair, LiveRamp, and a retailer.
As a reminder, we're listening to Evan Hovorka from Albertsons and Laurie Johnshoy from LiveRamp. So now, as we start to take a look at all of that and the whole shift in the ecosystem and how all of that's coming together, and of course, retail media networks, in addition to monetizing opportunity, are also taking now the great data that you've got and trying to monetize that data as well as your ad inventory. Evan, can you talk a little bit about how Albertsons is amplifying that, and then how LiveRamp's helping in that question?
Yeah, absolutely. We really call it solutioning, right? So the age of data monetization for mature retail media networks is long in the past, and for good reason. We've got a lot of other assets that, when bundled together with our managed service offerings, can really bring go from that very mechanical unit sale conversation from our last question up to the storytelling level. That's where we've really leaned in and can connect like an omni-channel strategy to a brand looking to touch their shopper and all the places that they interact. And because there's that high fidelity single ID graph connecting offline and online, and then into the what we call off platform, the Metas and the Googles and Trade Desks of the world, they can feel confident that they've got a single audience to do reach and frequency in any of the places that they want to market. And now with the addition of CTV, you can really tell that richer brand story. So getting into things like inspiration and solutioning through recipes, or telling a bigger brand story around sustainability becomes part of that journey. And so when we started with mechanical data-driven technology as the foundation, good retail media networks have elevated into the storytelling and the upper funnel part of marketing. So we're going the other direction, which is great. I mean, that really lets brands then reward their VIPs. Maybe we're getting into personalized coupons and pricing while attracting a new generation of shopper through inspiration and new recipes or fast-moving trends on TikTok or Meta or Pinterest. So then it's our job to make sure all those systems connect and talk with intelligence, because they are on different ID currencies. As great and sharing as Google is with their ID system Pair, that's not going to cut it for Meta, TikTok, Pinterest. They're going to have their own ID ecosystem. And so without a company like LiveRamp, then the RMN is set to be the translator. And while not impossible, it's a really difficult task to try to translate all those different languages of those platforms and make it make sense, and then share that story back with the brand. LiveRamp is the great unifier. I don't know if you would call it like think of it as a language translator, but that's how I conceptualize. We go in Rosetta Stone, yeah. And it's a big piece of technology that is very difficult to manage because all those ID systems are ever changing. And so having a company fully focused on maximizing our match rates with all the places that we want to go, all the places brands want to market, is really refreshing. Then we can focus on the storytelling, the point of sale, the showing of performance back to the brand, the things that we're good at. So that's really how those two things come together. Bringing in in-store and that merchant relationship is really the final piece of the puzzle to bring the entire retail proposition, value proposition to the brand conversation. And that too will sit on the back of some type of clean room and identity resolution solution that LiveRamp offers.
Well, retail media networks in general, have a lot of pressure, right? They're being asked, like we see a lot of our customers are being asked to grow 30% to 100%, right, year over year. And so with that kind of pressure, you need to be very in tune to how advertisers want to spend money, right? And we have north of 20 retail partners that are moving into self-service data monetization options. And there's benefits right on both sides. For the advertiser, this provides them with more control and a scalable way to buy media. For media networks, it's a way to drive, in the majority of cases, which I'll talk a little bit about, incremental revenue. And you can do that with less resources than managed service and tap into new advertisers, right, that you wouldn't hit before, which could be some endemic, like your long tail that you're not able to work with every day, and also non-endemic. I recently read that programmatic digital display spend is supposed to grow 3 times faster than non-programmatic spend. So, I mean, the other thing to acknowledge is media networks, let's just outside of the top 10, because there's hundreds of media networks. So they're in varying stages of still figuring out their off-platform solutions, right? They're like, wow, this has been great revenue doing owned and operated and that profit margin there. But the reality is they need scale. So they need things like programmatic. But if you use programmatic, it allows you to way to start slowly, right? And offer maybe predetermined audiences to a controlled list of advertisers just to kind of start the journey. For large networks, cannibalization is a reality maybe for your top 15 advertisers, but that's where JBP conversations come into play, conversations that it needs to be above and beyond. But there has to be goals, right? Talk about like, how is this programmatic buy going to support your managed service and other buys? And what is the overall goal? So you're making sure that the power of them all together is better. But the reality is, if a media network tries to control how, when, where advertisers buy media, it won't be a matter of, is it incremental? They'll risk not having a seat at the table because advertisers want that flexibility and control.
Hey, Evan, can I ask a follow-up question to that? Because you were talking before about the importance of the commercial JBP and all that. How do you see programmatic versus that kind of what I would call sort of basically a commercial joint business plan as a giant managed service demand creation exercise? If you really want to put it in media terms, there's nothing programmatic about how the commercial and trade relationship works. Really, that's all done quite manually and in an old school way. Do you view programmatic media versus that kind of commercial planning as complementary, as tension between them? How do you think about it?
Yeah, 2 points on that. One, I'll just hit on Lori's answer. I think that is the right answer for a company like LiveRamp, who sees the potential here and will only help achieve that potential by removing friction. And a lot of the friction that Lori and LiveRamp see is each retail media network can kind of feel like they're a unicorn. And I've been at 2 and can attest that that's pretty accurate. And some of that unicorn feeling that's within a retailer or retail media network is because they're trying to preserve their customer shopper experience. And each store, even you think of a Target, Albertsons, Kroger, to a shopper, probably not significant differences walking up and down an aisle you see mustard, you see soft drinks. But to a retailer, there's very big differences in how those things get placed and priced and how the relationship evolves with each of their loyal shoppers. And we take that very seriously. That is the whole reason Albertsons gets to grow and be part of a retail media network, is because of our loyal shoppers continuing to spend their time and dollars with us. So shifting into things that would be more standardized or more programmatic is not ingrained in the DNA of a traditional retailer who's going to have 50 years, long before I ever showed up, of merchant-led decisioning and store-led decisioning, because that's the core and the heart of our business. And then when we throw around RTB and header bidding and programmatic trading of audiences, man, that is a whole nother world. And it feels like a world of unification and standardization and kind of a less special environment. That doesn't sound great to a Target or an Albertsons. But it sounds great to an agency who needs to traffic 1,000 campaigns a month for 20 different clients. They don't want that unicorn experience unless it's really special. So that's the balance between the two. There is the cannibalization and the business trade-offs that Lori mentioned as well. But ultimately, those can be overcome, I agree. The JBP is the way to get there. JBP is not just a managed service negotiation, Brian. I think it does include some of the self-serve offerings that we bring to market. Again, enabled through Trade Desk. So we have audience and measurement via Clean Room enabled on the Trade Desk. Folks can come and transact when given permission to trade on their seat, trade on their creative. But there is some business conversations to be had depending on the size of the investment or who the retailer is. Ultimately, we know that that's where the tech needs to go. We look at the self-serve value, how that brought Google's search business into the forefront, or even Meta getting into like long tail, and customers that wouldn't normally do managed service are now able to do it on their own because of self-serve tools. That's not lost on us. When we're moving in that direction with key strategic investments and making sure we're doing it right in a way that can preserve our shopper relationship and shopper experience. So it's happening, it's coming. It may not move as fast as a pure ad tech idea that can get propagated and moved a little quicker. And it's mostly because of the history of the retailer's relationship with the shopper and some of the other decision makers within the company.
Right. I think for me, the most powerful JBPs are when you do have a retailer JBP, but you also have a media JBP where an agency is sitting at the table, right? When they're involved. And again, that's going to be your top 20, but then they need to come together, because I think we all know if an advertiser is spending money with a retailer, they want to get credit, whether it's credit being an acknowledgement, whether it's financial credit, but they want to have them work together. And in order, we saw over and over when national campaigns were layered with trade campaigns, the performance consistently outperformed. And when you make sure you're managing the audiences between them, that's when the real power comes.
I'll even plus one on that, Lori, when we go the other direction and do shopper marketing tied to merchant support. So when we have those end caps or front of store signage and products kind of prominently on display, you can imagine the performance of those campaigns really blows up as well. So imagine the power of all three of those working together. Brian and PV, you've worked at CPGs. I wonder how that sounds, because I think the power lives on the brand, the CPG in this case, to make that come to life, like to force those conversations with the agency, who often has their own tech stack and data solutions, and then the retailers that are most prominent for that CPG, plus the merchant relationship. Only the CPG has direct control over all three of those pieces of the puzzle. We're very eager to help build and shape that, but some of those conversations are going to come through tough feedback from the CPG, demanding the agency and the RMN play nice, plus the merchants. When that happens, though, even if it's not fully programmatic, some of it's maybe still some manual JBP planning, but the media execution across the board could be programmatic. I think that's where things are really going to take off. We've got a little bit of friction between agencies and retail media networks still. We're seeing a few big ones, though, break down those walls. And we want to be there. We want to have products that are attractive to an agency for a national campaign, even if that brand is not asking the Albertsons Collective to be involved. We can help their CTV work better. We can figure out how to extend a reach from linear TV into CTV, even if it's not a Safeway focused banner, right? There's still power behind our data, in-flight optimization based on our sales. Even if we're not taking credit for the entire campaign performance, we can help that agency do better and look better without even being the featured part of the campaign. So that's where programmatic and self-serve, I think, outside of the CPG can really take off too. And we can throw non-endemic on top of that mix as well. So we want to have products in all of those races, horses in all those races. And it takes a little bit of time and planning to get there.
Yeah. The important thing is to get a horse in the race, right? Or there won't be opportunity for incrementality.
Yeah, well, I think that's true. And I think the other thing on the CPG side, having grown up on the analog and trading side of this world, the commercial side, not the media side, is I don't think it's possible to overestimate how daunting and confusing some of the jargon of the media world can be to the people that are responsible for 90% of the volume and 85% of the demand creation spend between a CPG company and a retailer, which are the people that sell stuff to Albertsons on that side. So I really think there's an enormous amount that both the CPG companies and the retailers need to do to just sort of bridge that vocabulary gap, if you will, so that everybody in the room in what we at Retail Cities call a double jointed planning session, which is where you've got the joint business plan on the media side and the joint business plan on the commercial side. Everybody's got to get a little double jointed and bend in different ways and learn different vocabulary in order to be able to really kind of understand that. So, because it's tricky. So, as someone who's had to learn media from the ground up without ever having worked in it, it's a journey. Let's put it that way. So, you want to talk about being a Rosetta Stone? That's the other area where the Rosetta Stone is needed. It's the translation software between media acronyms and the rest of the world. So, all right. So for both of you, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that data collaboration is also unlocking new insights and really improving media performance. What are some of the opportunities and challenges you've seen with that, and what are some of the ways you're working together to take advantage of the opportunities and solve for some of the challenges?
Yeah, Lori, I can take this one because I think you'll have a great answer to clean it all up. But data collaboration is easy to think about. How a CPG who's maybe sitting on a wealth of data that transcends all of their partnerships, and then a retailer who sits on the point of sale, the loyalty, the in-stocks, the item prices, especially when tied to like demographics and geo trends. There's endless number of ideas that can be built on top of that just within media activation, let alone the more abstract modeling and AI world. So the ideas are rich. The tools in which we need to deploy them, and privacy consciousness is at the forefront. That would be priority number one. Haven't always been around. And so you've had disparate cleanroom companies that live over here, identity graph that lives over here, and then a modeling or AI company that maybe is a third entity. And then you've got the CPG and the retailer. So maybe 5 companies have to come together to really build a best-in-class cleanroom enabled type of media or insight platform. That was 2 years ago. Let's say that was the reality. Now a lot of that is coming to live together. We've got a big investment in Capgemini to build AI custom to our audiences and insights. And I'll let Lori explain how LiveRamp has helped change that story. And then there's just so much more data and savviness within our top CPGs on what to do with it. I think the first cleanroom I built with P&G was 7 years ago on a LiveRamp backend. And it was so painful. We dedicated 2 data scientists. They dedicated 2, maybe 3. And it was all new data, all new fields. And while you think of retail data, how hard can it be? It's items and price points and geographic discrepancies. It shouldn't be that hard to figure out for a data scientist. But the reality is the formats and the coding, even the name of PepsiCo can show up 5 different ways inside of a retailer's database, just through the different merch tools and IRI integrations. And so then you're doing just hours and months of cleanup and data munging before you can let the power of those data scientists really shine. And we took many, many, many months before we first saw our value proposition show up. That type of investment is not scalable. Like, there's a couple companies that have that type of power and prowess, but it needs to be much more frictionless, operate more like a programmatic type of implementation. And so the value's out there, the ideas are rich, the need for that real-time AI-enabled execution for anything from media planning to merch planning, maybe this is where JBPs evolve in the future, can live in that system. We just need a way to do it faster and more scalably without taking any decline in the privacy standards that we expect.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Collaboration is a big word that a lot of people are using in LiveRamp. Our focus really is to try to simplify so more people can gain the benefits from it. Like if you just simply think about it as data collaboration as bringing fragmented data together and getting them out of silos, right? So many rich things can come out of it. And so before I hit on media, a few of the things that we're seeing our clients leverage it for, which is what makes us really excited, right? It's like they're using collaboration outside of media to understand like where to open up new locations. We had one client use it to analyze a potential acquisition, and we're seeing people use it to inspire innovation. We even had a QSR use data collaboration to break down internal silos to get customer insights to start launching new food items in the breakfast space, right? So it's really cool things. But when you think about media and what that just does for retail media networks. And so clean rooms like LiveRamp, powered by Habu, have given the ecosystem the ability to supercharge their media buying, capture walled garden insights, and unlock new markets, right? Data collaboration, it advances cross-screen measurement by unlocking access to Explore data that was previously inaccessible by partners. But like if you think about it, the really exciting things are when we start merging multiple data sets together, like Evan mentioned, to really supercharge. But, right, a lot of people are viewing collaboration synonymous with clean rooms, but it's really, really much more than that. And so the opportunity, like I said, is collaborating with multiple partners to connect. But when I think about challenges, right, many clients don't have the technology or the resources to fully unlock collaboration. We actually just did a study with Forrester, and we found that there's a huge gap between companies' desire to do more with collaboration, their ability to do it. Like I think it was, for example, we had 49% of companies know how important it was to provide advertisers with transparency, but only 9% can do it today. So we've seen a lot of clients struggle with this, being on different platforms or clouds. But that is why the power of our acquisition with Habu that allows partners to collaborate across clouds, across clean rooms, across data warehouses. And so it's really thinking about how do you choose the right partner that is going to help you to enable that technology while still focusing on privacy and data, right? That's the crucial part about all of it. I think the conversation, if we come back a year from now, is going to be very different about how this space has advanced than where we're at today. It's going to continue to evolve.
Fantastic. And look, I think we're running up against our time today, unfortunately, but this has been a fantastic conversation. And I'd like to thank, and I know Peter would like to thank you if his communication device was working properly. He would thank you as well, for your participation in the session today. But this is a great conversation. And, I really think I think one of the great themes of having partners on the conversation, and you guys are obviously business partners, but you've personally worked together as well. I think it highlights to me one of the most important things that came out of this from a partnership point of view, which is that yes, partnership is about data sharing, and Lori, it's about clean rooms, but it's about so much more than clean rooms, as you said. But it's also it is really also about people working together and understanding each other and building relationship and building trust and being able to make that work. I mean, there are a lot of other great points in here. I thought, Evan, the way you started off talking about, the whole point of this at the beginning was to sell more units of stuff. And then media takes on its own sort of reality and its own measures of effectiveness and things like that. But the commercial environment's kind of forcing everybody back to a conversation around using retail media, not just as a media end in and of itself, but really as a tool for business growth. And then what are the requisite steps then to do that? And this type of data partnership is so important because so much of the business, particularly in grocery, is still done in store, that the only hope you've got of really being able to bring the proposition of retail media to life in the grocery channel is to have a fairly clear identity solution for being able to map the person as they go through that total purchase journey. And I thought that was a really important part of what we talked about today. I liked all of our conversation about pears because I'm hungry too. So being out west this morning, it's still breakfast time here. So that was that was good to that was good to pick up. That unified identity also being really critical to the rise, not just of in-store, but also to CTV. Whether that's going through the trade desk to using your creative to get access to audiences, but all of the tools at your disposal, don't work without the Rosetta Stone, right? Like you've got all these slightly different languages being spoken. Without the Rosetta Stone of a unified identity, you're just not going to be able to leverage these things as effectively as possible. And but I think all of this in the end just goes to making a retail media network actually part of a total media network and not just a retail thing.
Yeah, I'll just throw one piece on that at risk of putting your listeners to sleep, Brian. But an example of what Lori's talking about, if you're going to do a clean room and you're driving units or marketing or brand messaging, every hop you take away from the point of execution is an opportunity for taxes, ad tech fees, and then really loss of performance because you're maybe translating an identity graph or you're having to move in your insights from this platform into your activation platform. So doing your clean rooms and collabs in the same place that you're doing your insights and activation and measurement is almost a table stakes. We've looked at before Habu was acquired by LiveRamp, we talked lots about putting a clean room solution in there. And then the question was, well, what are you going to do with the output of that clean room? Oh, it's going to be an audience. It's going to be a retargeting strategy. It's going to be an insight. It's going to be a closed loop measurement. Okay, well, where's all the data that powers those things? Oh, it's in your media activation stack, which is powered by LiveRamp. So that acquisition just made a lot of my internal conversations disappear. And then just to show how that comes to life, we were first to market with LiveRamp and Pinterest on a closed loop with a social program. Well, that innovation comes through retailer collaboration and partnership with a social platform. And since we're both running on LiveRamp, fantastic. That idea is now going to transcend to all social. Trade Desk, we do all of our self-serve enablement, close loop an audience through a clean room into Trade Desk. So now, again, if you're a CPG looking to build a clean room with a retailer, like the Collective, when you build it, it can then auto-connect to all those other things because of the power of Habu and the identity graph at LiveRamp. So now if you do find an insight, you do find that audience that you like or dislike, your ability to push it into the right platforms with efficiency and consistency is all inherent in that single stack. So there's some efficiencies there by picking the right partner.
Right. And I think it's critical to make sure your partners have a global ecosystem with a multitude of connections to make that happen.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the critical point. I think we're moving toward, the dialogue around data, and we're going to have to wrap, but the dialogue around data years ago was so much about who owns the data and who has their data and who's going to acquire all the data. And it's like, that's cool, but it always struck me that this was going to be the conversation we're really going to have, which is not who owns the data, but who uses it and connects it the most effectively, right? Like that's the power of data today. There's so much data that you can connect to. The skill sets around connectivity are almost more important than the principles around ownership, or at least as important if you're really looking to amplify and make this work. So I just want to remind our audience today of the CPGguys.com, where you can find all of our content. And if you think your company has thought leadership like this that you want to contribute, please ping us at contact@cpgguys.com, and maybe you can join us on the podcast. Don't forget to drop us a rating at cpgguys.com on the navigation bar at the top of your subscription page. And thank you to all of our now almost 31,000 followers that we have on the podcast network. Lori, Evan, this is a great conversation tonight. I want to thank you so much. I already did my wrap up, and then you guys wrapped up my wrap up. So that worked out great. So I think at this point, I want to thank you both for your time and your energy and your passion on the topic. So
thank you so much. And thank you, Evan, for being such a great partner.
Same to you, Lori. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, PV.
I'll thank Peter in absentia, who's clearly interviewing to be Shohei Ohtani's translator, even as we speak. So, all right, everybody, take care. Have a great day.
The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.